The Old One's army in Terraria is an interesting event, not really falling into any mainstream progression, but still offering some of the best armor and weapons in the game for every class. And while this sounds like a great side quest on paper, the event itself is brutally difficult, and more times than not, is not worth the effort. But hold your horses. Today, we'll be looking at a post-golem melee weapon, which despite falling into all what's been said, still surprised me with how damn powerful it is, blowing even the Terra blade completely out the park in almost every area. Of course, I'm talking about the Flying Dragon. I think it's safe to say that this is one of these pre-pillar weapons and it's just absolute overkill, which explains why it comes at such a cost. Before we delve into the ways to obtain this beast, however, if you enjoy binging videos like these, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe, as it really helps out the channel. Alright, let's jump into this thing. As the Flying Dragon was added as part of the Dungeon Defenders 2 crossover update, we're of course required to farm the Old One's army invasion. This can be triggered by talking to your tavern keep and purchasing an Eternia crystal stand and crystal. Before starting the event, we need to create an optimal arena, which is simply just an unobstructed flat platform stretching a minimum of 61 tiles in both directions. And while you can totally go with this, I'd highly advise you don't, because it's already hard enough. Instead, as the event allows up to a max of 120 in both directions, I'd extend it by another 30 tiles in both directions for that sweet spot of safety and range. Okay, with the event underway, we simply just need to progress through all the rounds as quickly as possible. For this, there's a number of weapons you can use, and in my case, for you melee players, I'd highly recommend the Influx Waver. To be fair, I had no difficulty with rounds 1 to 6 with this setup, but as soon as you hit that dreaded round 7, that big old dragon will spawn out of nowhere and can be a right pain in the to take out. I personally found the Scourge of the Corrupted to be my best bet, and after one attempt, Betsy was down. And here's the most disappointing bit. Even though you may have gone through all of this pain, the Flying Dragon only has a 25% chance of dropping, so fingers crossed I guess. Alright, it's about time we looked at what it can do. As hinted in the intro, this weapon is an absolute beast, dealing outrageously high DPS even on the single target test. And yet, the Terra Blade literally deals less than half this damage and lacks other functionality. And surprisingly, the gap is widened even further on the multi-target test, dealing over 5000 DPS thanks to the projectiles being able to pierce through 4 enemies. And it gets even better, because unlike the Terra Blade, the Flying Dragon can travel through tiles, putting it in a whole other realm of useful. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's see it against some real enemies. As you'd expect with most late game weapons, against regular enemies, it just evaporates them. Even previously intimidating biome mimics go down like slimes. So let's just jump straight to bosses. How about the Cultist? Off the bat, just by looking at that health bar drain, you can tell how hard hitting this sword is. That base damage buff in the 1.4.1 update was no joke, and it's at this point I realised just how far behind the Terra Blade was in terms of DPS. Either way, in very little time, the Cultist is down. The Flying Dragon continues to impress me during the pillars, dealing more than enough knockback to keep even some of the most knockback resistant enemies away. Furthermore, its ability to phase through blocks is a lifesaver, and is basically a get out of jail free card for the usual long drawn experience of the pillars. So I guess now it's all down to this. What's it like against the Moonlord? And well, to be honest, it was fantastic, but I did start to notice one limitation, which was its slightly lesser than ideal range. Although it looks like it goes on forever, the projectiles only go about the length of the screen, meaning you can't just cheese Moonlord off screen like you can with some weapons. Nevertheless, this wasn't really a big deal, and took out the Moonlord in a time comparable to post-cultist stuff. Nicely done. It's crazy to think that this and the Terra Blade are only one boss apart, and it's not like there's a big gap there too. So I guess it all falls on, can you be bothered going through the effort of farming the Old One's army? And if I'm honest, that's your call to make. This has been sockrteez, and I'll see you in the next one.